What would you do if you woke up one morning and everything you'd built, every sacrifice, every late night, every careful plan, was simply gone? If you're into real stories that hit deeper than they should, make sure you're subscribed, because this one only gets more intense. I didn't scream. I didn't panic. I just stared at the number. It was early morning, quiet in that heavy, post-celebration kind of way. I was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee warming my hands when my phone buzzed. A routine notification? At least that's what I thought. It was from my credit union. A large withdrawal alert I had set up years ago and never really expected to matter. Until it did. $81,400. Gone. Not pending, not processing. Gone. Pause for a second. If this already has you hooked, subscribe now, because what comes next is something no one expects. For a moment, my brain refused to interpret it. I reread it once, then again. The number didn't change. The account didn't change. That account wasn't just money, it was everything. 4 years of 6-day workweeks, missed opportunities, cheap meals grabbed between patient sessions. Every deliberate no I had said to short-term comfort in exchange for long-term stability. All of it had vanished before 7 a.m. on a Saturday, and I knew instantly, quietly, unmistakably, that this wasn't a mistake. If you've ever had that kind of realization, the one that lands without noise but changes everything, you already understand what happened next. My name is Renata. I'm 34, an occupational therapist specializing in post-surgical rehabilitation. For 4 years, I had been working toward a single goal, a duplex in Creston Park. I had seen it twice. I had the inspection report. I had a folder CR duplex final with 17 documents inside it. This wasn't a dream, it was a plan, a precise one, the kind that only works if no one touches the money. And someone had. Here's where it gets complicated. To understand how this happened, you need to understand my family. Not in the dramatic sense, no shouting matches or obvious cruelty. Ours was quieter than that. My mother had perfected something I can only describe as strategic helplessness. She never demanded outright. She asked in a way that made helping her feel like the natural, decent thing to do, as if refusing would somehow make you the unreasonable one. My father was different. Not softer, just quieter. He let her open doors, then walked through them. And my younger brother, he never had to fix anything. That was always my role. Forms, contracts, financial decisions, if it involved responsibility, it came to me. I was good at systems. I understood how institutions worked, how paperwork functioned, how to read what others overlooked. And because of that, I became useful. Too useful. At first, it was small things, a loan here, a cosign there, temporary support that was supposed to circle back but rarely did. Over time, I started pulling away, not dramatically, just quietly. Shorter replies, slower responses. A steady, consistent no. Eventually, I believed I had created distance. I was wrong, because distance only exists if both sides respect it, and mine didn't. My brother's wedding took place in the Hudson Valley, a 3-day event at a converted farmhouse. Beautiful, carefully planned, and unsurprisingly, partially managed by me. That's just how things worked. The night before the ceremony, my mother found me in the hallway. She looked tired, worn down in a way that felt genuine. She said she needed help, something about a timing issue, a wire transfer, vendor payments, a temporary account restriction. She explained it smoothly, calmly, like she had already rehearsed it. Then she asked if she could use my account. Just briefly, just as a conduit. "It'll be a weekend at most," she said. Here's the part that still stays with me. I hesitated. Not outwardly, but internally something flickered. A small, quiet warning. A version of me understood what was happening, but it was the night before my brother's wedding. She looked exhausted, and I convinced myself I was overthinking it, so I said yes. It took less than 10 minutes. She even took my phone to enter the confirmation code herself while I held a clipboard. That detail didn't matter at the time. It matters now. By Saturday morning, the account was empty. I sat in the guest room for 40 minutes after seeing the alert. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong, but because what I felt wasn't grief. It was recognition. Something I had been avoiding for years had finally become undeniable. I called the credit union. They confirmed the transfer had been made through authorized access. Authorized, that word changes everything. I took the case number, wrote it down, got dressed, and then I went downstairs to breakfast. Yes, breakfast. Because sometimes the most surreal moments in life happen in completely ordinary settings. My mother was already there, seated comfortably, looking rested. I sat down, ate something I couldn't later remember. waited. When the conversation broke into smaller pieces, I leaned slightly toward her. "I need to talk to you about my account," I said quietly. She picked up her coffee before responding. "I was going to call you later," she said. Of course she was. Then she explained, not nervously, not defensively. Calmly, my father had made financial commitments, borrowed money, things had become time-sensitive. The money from my account, she said, would help stabilize everything. Just like that, no hesitation, no apology, just justification. "You took my house deposit," I said. She met my eyes. "You're young, you'll rebuild." If you're still reading, pause for a second, because this is the moment everything shifts. This is the moment where most people either stay or finally see things clearly. And what I did next changed the course of everything. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I understand." Then I stood up, walked out, got into my car, and started making calls. This is where everything changes. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time, because this doesn't end quietly. A lawyer. The bank's fraud division. A list of everything I needed to do next. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes the hardest decision isn't realizing you've been betrayed. It's deciding what you're going to do about it. Cliffhanger before part 2. By the time I got home the next day, I had a case number, legal representation, and 6 months of financial records in a sealed envelope. What I didn't have yet was the full truth. And when it finally came out, it was far worse than I imagined. If this story has you thinking about your own boundaries, your own quiet warnings you may have ignored, make sure you stay with this. Part 2 is where everything unravels. The investigation, the hidden deception, and the decision that cost me my family. Follow along, you won't want to miss what happens next. By the time I got home the next day, I had a case number, legal representation, and 6 months of financial records sealed inside an envelope sitting on my kitchen counter. What I didn't have yet was the full truth. And when it came, it didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded slowly, piece by piece, like something that had been carefully hidden, not just from me, but from anyone who might have looked too closely. The lawyer I found, Claudine, was the kind of person who didn't waste words. She didn't reassure me. She didn't dramatize anything. She simply listened, asked precise questions, and started pulling threads. Within 3 weeks, the picture that emerged was far worse than I had imagined. My father hadn't just made a few poor financial decisions. He had built an entire system. Over the course of 5 years, he had been collecting informal investments from multiple people, 8 to be exact. Friends, professional contacts, even family. He presented it as a property development opportunity, something structured, something legitimate. It wasn't. Most of it existed only on paper. And when the pressure started building, when people began expecting returns, updates, accountability, he needed money. Quickly. That's when my account became relevant, not as a last resort, as the next logical step. Because in the internal logic of my family, I had always been the reliable one, the stable one, the one who absorbs impact and keeps going. I wasn't just a daughter. I was a resource. The legal case moved forward on 2 tracks. A civil suit filed by Claudine and a criminal investigation initiated by 2 of my father's investors. The bank's findings supported what we already knew. Access to my account had been obtained under false pretenses. My mother had framed it as a temporary logistical need. That framing had been documented, and it held. During those first 2 weeks, my mother called 11 times. I didn't answer. Her messages shifted in tone, from anger to guilt, to something softer that might have sounded like remorse if I didn't understand her patterns as well as I did. Those were the hardest to ignore. Because loving someone and understanding what they are capable of are not the same thing, and the distance between those 2 truths is where most of the pain lies. My father called once, just once. He said he was sorry I was going through this. He never said what he had done. Those are not the same sentence. Then, something happened that affected me more than I expected. My sister-in-law called. We had never been particularly close. Friendly, yes, but not deeply connected. Her voice was hesitant. "Renata, I need to tell you something." Before the wedding, my mother had approached her too, asked for access to her accounts. The same explanation, the same urgency. But she had delayed, deflected, avoided committing. "I should have warned you," she said. "I'm so sorry." That was the moment I sat down on the floor of my office and stayed there for a while, because it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the realization that someone else had seen the shape of what was coming and stepped aside quietly. And I had walked straight into it. A month later, she and my brother came to stay with me. We ate takeout at my kitchen table, And for the first time, she told me everything she had noticed over the past 2 years: patterns, conversations, small inconsistencies that hadn't made sense at the time. Names, dates, even a vague description of a document she had once seen in my father's home office. Claudine found it useful, very useful. The civil case settled out of court. Full repayment, $81,400 plus legal fees, structured over 22 months, secured by a lien against my parents' home. The criminal case moved separately. My father entered a plea agreement, probation, mandatory restitution to all affected parties, and a 10-year ban on any form of financial solicitation. My mother received a civil judgment and a probationary term for her role in the transfer. I gave one statement to the district attorney. Claudine handled the rest. The first repayment came through on a Wednesday morning in March. I was between patients when the notification appeared. I looked at it, locked my phone, and went back to work, because by then the money, while still important, was no longer the center of the story. The duplex in Creston Park sold before I recovered the full amount. I drove past it once, telling myself it was incidental. There was a child's bicycle on the porch, a small window box with something growing in it. I sat in the car for a moment, engine running. Then I drove away and realized something unexpected. I wasn't as sad as I thought I would be, because what I had really been chasing wasn't just that property, it was what it represented: security, ownership, a life that couldn't be quietly accessed and taken from me. 6 weeks later, I found something else. A single-family home, strong structure, deep backyard, quiet street. The front door needed painting. I chose a dark, specific shade of blue. I moved in on a Sunday in May. My brother, his wife, and 2 friends from the clinic helped. My parents weren't there. That was intentional. People sometimes ask me if I regret taking legal action against my own family. I understand the question, but here's the answer I've arrived at. My father created a system that depended on people trusting him. When that system started collapsing, he used my mother to reach into my savings, through a door I opened because I believed, even for a moment, that this time was different. That required planning. It required a belief about me, that I would accept it, that I would recover quietly, that I would continue. I was never meant to be protected. I was meant to be available. Loving my parents and accepting what they chose to do are not things I've tried to merge into one clean emotion. They don't fit that way, and I've stopped trying to force them to. Months later, my brother and his wife came over for dinner. We cooked together, talked about everything, and then, eventually, about our parents. Not avoiding it, not circling around it, just acknowledging it. She brought a small plant, said it was difficult to kill. I placed it on the kitchen windowsill. We cleaned up afterward, and it felt enough. I still take early shifts at the clinic sometimes. I like the quiet before the day begins. The steady, measurable progress of helping someone regain something they thought was lost. There's something grounding about that, something no one can access, transfer, or take. There's one thought I keep returning to. The door I chose is not the one I originally planned. It leads somewhere different, but it belongs to me in a way the old one never could. And maybe that's the point. If any part of this feels familiar, the expectations, the quiet pressure, the assumption that your stability exists to support others, then hold on to this. Protecting what is yours is not selfish. It is not cold. And it is not a failure of love. It's the only way love remains real, without being used against you. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When did you first realize that protecting yourself and protecting others from consequences are 2 completely different things? And once you understood that, what did you choose to do? Subscribe if you believe protecting yourself isn't selfish, because more people need to hear this.